Life's unexpected events can disrupt even the most meticulous plans, which is why I no longer engage in planning. Prior to my divorce, I meticulously planned every detail. In my professional life, I developed backup plans for every potential emergency in my department. However, a recent call from my ex-wife, whom I had not seen in over a year and was not eager to see, has led to an unexpected development. She has been admitted to the hospital. My daughter, Sammy, had been particularly insistent, so I drove back to town. The journey to the city hospital, where Sammy had taken her mother, took nearly an hour due to heavy traffic. I parked and hoped to be there for a short time. At the information desk, I was informed that my ex-wife had been admitted. My wife, Erica, had been in the hospital for 2 days. A nurse guided me to her room and informed me that she was still asleep. I inquired about her condition. The nurse began to respond, then I interrupted, saying, "Excuse me, is my wife here?" I was informed that my wife, Erica, had been in the hospital for 2 days. The nurse then informed me that she was still asleep. I inquired about her condition. "Your wife," she began. "Ex-wife," I clarified, smiling. The nurse smiled back, but then looked serious. "Dad, you aren't flirting with the nurse while Mom's in the hospital, are you?" my daughter inquired. "Of course not," I replied. "Sammy, if I were flirting, I would have at least asked," I pointed out. I glanced at the nurse, Bonnie. She replied, "Ooh, that name suits you." I replied, "My daughter," and then guided me into her mother's room, disrupting our moment. "Wife," with a smile, the nurse smiled back, but then looked serious. "Dad, I'm sure you understand the importance of professional boundaries, especially in a medical setting," he said. "Daughter, of course not, Dad." "Dad, if I were flirting, I would have at least asked." "Daughter, I would have thought so, too, Dad." "Daughter, that name suits you." "Dad," my daughter then guided me into her mother's room, disrupting our moment. The room contained 4 beds, and it was the most depressing place I had ever been in, whether in a hospital or anywhere else. "Daughter, this room is terrible, isn't it?" "Dad, I'm not sure." She replied, "I'm not sure." "Dad, she's here because she doesn't have health insurance. Darren is unable to add her to our insurance plan. The only person who could do that is her voice." "Daughter, Sammy, my dear, I love you more than anyone. I'm willing to do almost anything for you, but you've got to get." The room contained 4 beds, and it was the most depressing place I had ever been in, whether in a hospital or anywhere else. "This room is suboptimal, wouldn't you agree?" she remarked. I gave a nonchalant shrug. "Dad, she's here because she doesn't have health insurance. Darren is unable to add her to our insurance plan. The only person who can do that is her. Sammy, I love you more than anyone. I am willing to do almost anything for you, but you have to understand that your mother and I are divorced." I followed the judge's instructions to the letter, but not all of her requests. Sammy stated gently. We stood by the bed, looking at the sleeping woman. "She never wanted a divorce, you know," Sammy said quietly. "She still loves you, even now. People in hell want ice water." I said coldly, "But they're down there for what they did. Your mother and I are divorced because of what she did when we were." "Sammy, your mother and I are divorced." I complied with the judge's orders, but not her wishes. Sammy stated gently. We stood by the bed, observing the sleeping woman. "She never wanted a divorce, you know," Sammy added quietly. "She still loves you. Even in this situation, there are individuals in hell who desire ice water." I replied formally, "But they are facing consequences for their actions." "Your mother and I are divorced because of her actions during our marriage. I am aware of the nature of her actions," Sammy stated. "I was present during the incident, yet I firmly believe that you two are still a good fit for each other. She has a strong affection for you, Dad. Look at her. She is showing clear signs of distress. Some individuals do not retain their vitality with the passage of time," I stated in a detached manner. "Perhaps she should prioritize her own well-being. She is dependent on her husband," Sammy retorted. She needs love and care. That's why she's wasting away. You have provoked me to speak my mind, I retorted. I inquired, do you know who her husband is? Samantha, I am aware of the situation you described. I was present at your wedding, and I believe that you two are still a good match. Samantha, she loves you very much. Look at her. She's not doing well. Some individuals do not retain their vitality with the passage of time. Perhaps she needs to prioritize self-care. She requires the support of her spouse. Samantha needs love and care. Her current state of decline is a result of this neglect. You woke me to discuss this. I retorted, in a joking manner. Who is her husband? Do you have any compassion, Sammy? You are incapable of understanding the concept of compassion, Sammy responded. I tolerated her for years, gave her chances, but she couldn't relinquish her past. Dad, wouldn't you like to have someone to settle down with and enjoy life? I've been through this, and I can offer some perspective. I said, feeling a sense of bitterness. I thought I had found that person. I loved her enough to put my pride aside and try to fix things, even after I found out what she was doing, but she couldn't. Samantha, you don't understand the concept of compassion. I have demonstrated this over the years, offering her repeated opportunities to reconcile, yet she has not been able to forgive. Dad, wouldn't you like to have someone to settle down with and enjoy life? I've been there, done that. I thought I had found that person. I loved her enough to put my pride aside and try to fix things, even after I found out what she was doing, but she couldn't let it go. Samantha pointed out that some women are capable of loving two men simultaneously, and some men can handle that. I replied, but I'm not one of them. I inquired, why am I here anyway? I've been here since we brought her. Samantha, I need a break. I've been here since we brought her. I need to go home, shower, and see my husband. Darren was with her yesterday, but he is not fond of her. He used to, but I stopped. The situation has unfortunately led to the near disruption of 3 families due to the actions of 2 troubled individuals. Perhaps they are better off together, Samantha suggested. Don't you have any compassion? Sometimes I struggle to find my heart, I replied, exasperated. Samantha interrupted, you've already exacted your revenge. What more do you want? I didn't seek revenge, I said. I simply walked away. I still don't understand. Samantha replied, you're not the type to walk away. There are many aspects of this situation that I find perplexing. Perhaps they are better suited for each other. Do you not have any compassion? Samantha inquired. I am speechless. I have destroyed it. Did you not already get your revenge? You have crushed her spirit. What more do you require? I did not seek retribution. I simply walked away. I am still perplexed. You are not the type to walk away. There are many aspects of this situation that I find perplexing. Since the divorce 2 years ago, we have divided all assets except for the house. It just didn't make sense. She stated that her mother was not interested in retaining any of those assets. Her primary concern was your well-being, and it appeared that your financial situation was more stable than it actually was. Your mom's lawyer has thoroughly reviewed all of our financial records. I remained nonchalant. Dad, then why are you driving a customized Mustang that my husband claims cost at least $50,000? That's a significant amount. She inquired about the possibility of my credit being better, to which I replied that I would be willing to wait while she slept for a few hours. I will provide you with a break, honey. I expressed my hope that she would not wake up. If she does, I will call you immediately. What is the nature of her condition? In any case, Dad, Mom has been diagnosed with severe depression symptoms. She is currently undergoing treatment with medication. 000. Given her current financial constraints, she inquired about the possibility of my credit score being a more suitable indicator. I replied that I would be willing to take a few hours off from my own work to supervise her while she slept. I'll give you a break, honey. Hopefully, she won't wake up. If she does, I will call you immediately. What is the nature of her illness? Dad, Mom has been diagnosed with severe depression symptoms. She is currently undergoing treatment with antidepressant medication. For some reason, she ingested all of her pills at once. Consequently, we had to perform a stomach pump. She has also been neglecting her nutrition and consuming excessive amounts of alcohol. She is currently experiencing symptoms of exhaustion and dehydration. The motivation behind the ingestion of the pills remains uncertain. It is unclear whether it was an accidental ingestion or a deliberate attempt at suicide. Sammy has indicated that there is a possibility that she may not regain consciousness. Sammy stated that she had taken all of her pills at once, and we had to perform a stomach pump. She has also been eating less than usual and has been consuming excessive amounts of alcohol. She is currently experiencing symptoms consistent with exhaustion and dehydration. We are still uncertain whether she took all of the pills by accident or if she was trying something. Sammy stated that there is a possibility that she will not regain consciousness properly. I inquired and she confirmed this. I informed my father that if she does wake up, he should be nice to her for me. Sammy kissed me on the cheek, and then she left the room. I proceeded to sit down in the chair next to the bed and opened my iPad. I began reading a book, but soon found myself distracted. My thoughts then drifted back to 2 years prior, when this all began. Ed, do you inquire? I said, smiling. Sammy, if she does, please be nice to her for me, okay? Sammy kissed me on the cheek and exited the room. I proceeded to sit down in the chair next to the bed and retrieved my iPad. I began by opening the book I had been reading, but my mind wandered back to 2 years ago, when this had all started. Ed, it was a curious occurrence for our children. When Sammy was young, she had a habit of mixing candy in peculiar ways. I adored her and was willing to eat whatever she made, regardless of its flavor. However, when she invited us over for dinner, it was quite pleasant, despite her continued lack of culinary skills. The roast was excessively dry. Darren was kind enough to refill my drink, likely aware that the roast was not up to par. Fortunately, I rarely drink alcohol, so I did not overindulge. During the conversation, Erica mentioned that when Sammy was young, she had a tendency to mix candy in unconventional ways. I adored her, so I would consume whatever she prepared and compliment it. During one dinner she hosted, the meal was satisfactory, though the roast was rather dry. Darren repeatedly replenished my beverage, likely anticipating that I would be unable to finish it. I fortunately do not consume alcohol regularly, so I did not become inebriated. The gathering was a pleasant occasion to spend time with family. I had the pleasure of spending time with Samantha's son, John, who had the unique distinction of being named after Mayhay. Was charming and, in my opinion, did not commit any errors. The highlight of the evening was when Sam and Darren informed us that she was pregnant again. Darren, what are your plans for my daughter? I jested, what are your plans for my daughter? We discussed the typical subjects when our children are expecting. We all expressed our preference for the name Elizabeth if it's a girl, after Darren's. It was a pleasure spending time with the family. I had the opportunity to spend time with Samantha's son, John, who shares my name. He was charming, and I found him to be quite cute. The highlight of the event was when Sam and Darren announced that she was pregnant again. Darren, what are your intentions regarding my daughter? I jested, of course. We discussed the typical subjects when our children are expecting. We expressed our preference for the name Elizabeth if it's a girl, referring to Darren's daughter. I proposed Peter as a name for a boy, inspired by Darren's father, which he found appealing. However, the conversation took an unexpected turn. Erica pointed out that you already have a grandchild named after you. It would be best to allow someone else to choose this time. What are your thoughts on the matter? I jested. I surmised that the name Erica might be suitable for a girl, and Eric for a boy. Well, actually, I was thinking Randall. She suggested we could call him Randy. Randall James is a suitable name. The mood shifted. Initially, I had proposed Peter for a boy, inspired by Darren's fondness for his father. However, the situation took an unexpected turn. Erica pointed out that we already had a grandchild named after us. Let someone else pick this time. What are your thoughts on the matter? I jested. Allow me to venture a guess. Erica for a girl, Eric for a boy. Actually, I was thinking Randall. Well, actually, I was thinking Randy. Randall James is a pleasant option. The atmosphere shifted abruptly. Samantha looked at me. I'm not entirely convinced by that. I find Dad's suggestion more appealing. What about you, Darren? Darren had not yet looked at me. He maintained his smile, contemplating the joy of his father's satisfaction in having a grandchild bearing his name. He nodded in agreement. Erica extended her hand in a gesture of friendship, but I firmly declined. Samantha had not noticed my reaction. What are your thoughts on the matter, Dad? She inquired in a cold tone. I replied, I believe naming him would be as significant a misstep as the one your mother just made. Have you ever witnessed a scene in a film or television program where everyone is enjoying themselves at a party? There are people dancing, music playing, people eating and drinking, and everyone is laughing. Then someone does something foolish, and suddenly, everyone stops what they're doing. I replied, I believe that naming him would be as ill-advised as the recent decision your mother made. Have you ever observed a scene in a film or television program where individuals are socializing at a gathering? There's music playing, people are dancing, eating, and drinking, and everyone is laughing. However, the attention of the group shifts when someone makes a foolish mistake. Typically, the music comes to a halt, and you hear a sound similar to the scratching of a needle on an old record. This scenario mirrors the situation we encountered, where the transition felt like it lasted for hours, although it was likely no more than a few seconds. There was a palpable silence. Darren then broke the silence in a diplomatic manner. He glanced at his watch and stated, I must be going home. The group's attention turned toward the individuals in question. Typically, the music ceases, and a sound similar to the scratching of an old record can be heard. This occurred in the present situation, although it might have been no more than a few seconds. No one uttered a word. Darren then broke the silence in a diplomatic manner. He glanced at his watch and stated, I truly must retire for the evening. I have an early meeting tomorrow. Thank you for a most enjoyable evening, Darren. I love you, Sammy, I replied. As I proceeded toward the exit, Samantha called out to me, What is wrong with you? Are you forgetting something? Please come here and embrace me, Sammy, I said. I must take my leave. I am unable to breathe. You were referring to your mother, she remarked with a smirk. Darren, I appreciate the invitation to your gathering this evening. However, I must insist on my departure. Samantha, your accusation that I am not in control of my emotions is unfounded. I am simply trying to leave. I am having difficulty breathing. I was referring to my mother, she smirked. Darren, I thought you abstained from alcohol consumption. What substance did you add to my father's drink during the evening? It was Pepsi, sweetheart. I replied. However, I am currently in need of a stronger beverage. What is the matter with you, John? Erica approached me. She reached out to me once more, and I moved away. This interaction was observed by all present. We will address this matter upon our return home. Darren, I thought you abstained from alcohol. What type of beverage were you consuming throughout the evening? Pepsi, sweetheart, I replied. I could use a drink right now. Is everything all right? John inquired, approaching me. I'm leaving, I said, moving away from her. Honey, we aren't doing anything, she said. I'm returning to my residence. I am unaware of your current activities and destination, but I can assure you that I am not accompanying you. Wait, Dad said, Samantha. You're upset with your mother because she didn't like the name you chose. Erica's eyes widened, and then she understood that I was aware of the situation. No, honey. I'm not upset or angry. I've just. Honey, I assure you that we are not doing anything, she said. I am returning to my residence. I am unaware of your current activities and destination, but I can assure you that I am not involved in any way. Wait a minute, Dad said. Samantha, it seems you're upset with your mother because she didn't approve of the name you suggested. Erica's eyes widened, and then, because she had just realized that I was aware of the situation, she stated, No, honey. I'm not mad or angry at all. I have finally come to my senses. There are times when loved ones do things that cause pain, yet we choose to overlook it. There are times when you suffer in silence because you think that if you just get past this one little thing, you can go on, and things will be better in the end. However, subsequent events demonstrate that these allowances have not addressed the full scope of one's suffering. Sometimes, certain matters cannot be disregarded. Everyone in the room was looking at me, except for Erica, who was already aware of the subject I was about to discuss. Samantha said, "Dad, you're not making any sense. Sammy, your mother wants you to name my grandson after the man she's been in love with for the past 15 years or so. She recently discovered that it can be challenging to move on from the past." Everyone in the room was looking at me, except for Erica. She was already aware of the subject of my conversation. Samantha expressed her confusion, saying, "Dad, you're not making any sense. Sammy, your mother would like you to name my grandson after the man she has been in love with for the past 15 years. The man she had an affair with recently passed away. She's trying to ensure his memory lives on in my grandson." Both Samantha and Darren looked at Erica, who had fallen to the floor and was silently sobbing. "I'm so sorry, John," she said. "It's finished. It has been over for more than 5 years. I've been striving to be the best wife I can be to you." "Why did it end, Erica?" I inquired because I felt a sense of culpability. "I was aware that my actions," she began. Erica's recent passing was a topic of conversation. She is working to ensure that his memory endures in my grandson. Both Samantha and Darren regarded Erica, who had fallen to the floor and was silently weeping. "I apologize, John," she stated. "It's finished. It has been over 5 years. I've been striving to be the optimal spouse to you." "Why did it conclude?" I inquired because I felt remorseful. I was aware that my actions were inappropriate, so I ended the relationship. Would it be possible to discuss this matter from the beginning? It was not an extramarital relationship. Our interactions were limited to a single annual meeting, and our time together was not always spent in the company of Z. Following my return home, we consistently experienced the finest Z of any period. The relationship has been concluded for a significant period. I love you, John. It is essential that we address this matter. I'm afraid you don't understand. The situation is more complex than it appears. Erica, I lost my temper, and I regret that. Once the divorce is finalized, the full details will be available for your review. I'm disappointed in you for not being honest with me. Could you please clarify what you meant when you stated that she had admitted it? If it were up to you, you would still be seeing him. I have previously communicated to you that I have ended the relationship. However, it has come to my attention that you are not being entirely truthful. I understand your perspective, but the situation is more complex than it appears. I acknowledge that I lost my temper, and I apologize for that. However, I am concerned about the lack of honesty in our communication. Could you please clarify what you meant when you stated that she had admitted it? If it had been your decision, you would still be seeing him. I had previously informed you that I had ended the relationship with her. However, she became enraged, and you are being untruthful once again. I explicitly stated that I had ended the relationship. You previously requested that I travel to Boston to meet with him 5 years ago. I informed you that I had physically assaulted him. He was in the hospital before your unfaithful ex-wife was off the plane. I obtained his phone and retrieved all of your text messages. I intend to use these as evidence in the proceedings. I informed him of my identity and explained that I intended to end the relationship. I traveled to Boston to meet with him 5 years ago. I informed him that I had been violent towards him. He was in the hospital before your unfaithful partner was off the plane. I took his phone and retrieved all of your text messages. I intend to use these as evidence in the proceedings. I also informed him of my identity and that the next time he came near you, it would be his last day on earth. I also informed him that I would inform his wife about the two of you. I informed him that if he ever attempted to contact you, even for a friendly conversation, I would be back, so you didn't have to end things. Erica, I did. John, I apologize. She expressed that my assessment was incorrect. I was perplexed. It was an error. I apologize for my part in this as well. Erica, I recognize that I was mistaken. I was in a state of perplexity. I recognize that I have made an error. I recognize that attempting to salvage this troubled marriage was an error in judgment. I did this for Sammy's benefit. I did not want her to have to deal with us splitting up until she was independent. I was also perplexed. I had hoped that, with time, our differences could be overcome. Given my deep affection for you, Erica, I too was in a state of confusion. I recognize that I have made an error in judgment. I misjudged my attempt to salvage this troubled marriage. However, my motivations were rooted in the well-being of our child, Sammy. I did not want her to have to deal with our separation until she was independent. I was also in a state of confusion. I believed that, with time, our love for each other would enable us to overcome the challenges we faced. However, I recognize that I have erred by not ending this relationship. I then made a concerted effort to salvage the relationship, but as you astutely observed, it was ultimately unsuccessful. Your actions this evening, specifically uttering his name, have effectively concluded our relationship. You have effectively terminated our marriage. I promptly exited the premises in my vehicle. I spent a considerable amount of time that night simply driving around. The sound of my Mustang's engine and the thrill of speeding through the moonlit night provided some relief. I turned off my phone to avoid disturbances. While I was initially upset, I was able to compartmentalize and maintain perspective. I had been aware of the situation with Erica for over 5 years and had been preparing for the divorce in various ways. Erica was likely more surprised by the events of this evening than I was. This was primarily because she was unaware of my knowledge of her extramarital affair, and secondly because she only became aware on this occasion of the reasons for the termination of the relationship. She had traveled to Boston for a conference, the same one she attended annually. She had made her usual reservation at the hotel. The conference was a one-day event. Erica was likely more surprised than I was by tonight's events. She was not aware of the affair, and it was only then that she learned the reasons behind its conclusion. She had traveled to Boston for a yearly conference, as she always did, and had reserved a room at the hotel she typically stayed at. The conference was a one-day seminar that she had always informed me was 2 days long. Following the conclusion of the conference, she had dinner with Randall. They conversed in the restaurant until it closed. During their conversation, she mentioned me on a couple of occasions. Following the restaurant's closure, they shared a courteous kiss and Randall informed me that the seminar spanned 2 days. Following the conclusion of the conference, he and Mary dined at a restaurant and conversed until closing time. During this time, they mentioned me on a couple of occasions. After closing time, they exchanged a kiss, and Mary returned to her room. Randy left the restaurant and went to his car to drive home. As Randy exited the premises, I was positioned on the hood of the car. "Hey, that's my car," he said. I apologized. "It's wrong for people to bother things that don't belong to them, isn't it?" Randy concurred. "Let's not discuss it further," he suggested. Randall returned to his room, exited the parking lot, and drove home. As he approached his car, I was sitting on the hood. "Hey, that's my car," he said. "I apologize," I replied. "It's wrong for people to bother things that don't belong to them, isn't it?" Randy concurred. "Let's not discuss that matter. Let's focus on Mary, your wife, who is currently awaiting you at your residence on Sycamore Street. It's likely too late for me to go there and talk to her right now. It would be prudent to wait until tomorrow to visit." "I'm going to contact the police," said Randy. I retrieved my phone and attempted to contact the authorities. "Randy, you are free to call the police at any time. However, it should be noted that the outcome will likely not be favorable for me, as the evidence suggests that I have been unfaithful to my wife, Erica, while my wife at home was waiting for me. We will address this matter appropriately. Randy, you are at liberty to call the police at any time. The outcome will be the same either way, as your actions have caused harm to your marriage and your spouse is now aware of your infidelity." Randy's face drained of color. "I'm not someone who shares personal information easily," I stated. "I believe you're making a mistake. I am acquainted with Erica, but we have not spent any time together, he stated. He looked at me and saw how serious my face was. Very well, we had dinner together this evening. Some of the insights we gained at the conference were quite intriguing. Face went pale. I'm not one for sharing personal information, Randy. I believe you have made an error in judgment. I am acquainted with Erica, but we haven't spent any time together, he replied. He looked at me and saw how serious my face was. All right, we had dinner together tonight. We found some of the conference topics to be quite engaging, and we both felt that it would be beneficial to discuss them further. Beyond that, there had been no further interaction. There was no further interaction. We simply lost track of time, I explained. You caused me concern, he stated. He smiled at me, expressing relief that the issue had been resolved. In response, I delivered a firm blow to his face. He fell to the ground. He then attempted to flee, but I intercepted and struck his head, which caused him to stumble and fall. I proceeded to physically subdue him, and his face was significantly contused. I expressed my concern to Randy, stating that I had been under the impression that I would not be able to address the matter. I then proceeded to flee, throwing his hubcap and catching him in the legs. He tripped over it and fell heavily again. I proceeded to physically subdue him, and his face was significantly contused. When I finished, his face was severely contused. I informed him that I had been under the impression that the issue would not be addressed. I thought I wasn't going to get to beat the crap out of you. I understand that your only meal of the night was dinner. I was present. What about the previous year or the year before that? How long has this been an issue? Perhaps 15 or 20 years, he said, his voice cracking with emotion. Randy, this is over, I said. He nodded quickly. If you ever say her name again, I will terminate you, I said. You have caused me great pain, he said. I understand that you only had dinner with her tonight. I was present. What about the previous year or the year before that? How long has this been an issue? Perhaps 15 or 20 years. He paused for a moment, then continued. It's over, Randy. I said. He nodded quickly in agreement. If you ever say her name again, I will terminate both your marriage and your life. Is that clear? He nodded in affirmation. Refrain from visiting her, I instructed. Do not visit her, nor should you write or call her. This was a final warning. He nodded in agreement. The next time we converse, it will not be as pleasant, he stated. I understand. Randy. The next time we converse, it will not be as agreeable. I stated. It appears that this approach was effective upon my return home. Erica was her usual self after the conference. Randy, the next time we talk, it won't be this pleasant. I stated, it appears that the situation was resolved upon my return home. Erica was her usual self after the conference. She attempted to overwhelm me with her romantic advances, but I resisted. Typically, after she returned from the conference, we would take a vacation together. That year, however, I feigned an inability to take time off, despite my earnest efforts to overcome the situation. I found myself unable to do so. A significant portion of my mind was occupied with. I was in a state of mind that can be described as Judas Priest mode. For those unfamiliar with Judas Priest, a prominent heavy metal band, I would like to provide some context. Their most critically acclaimed album was Screaming for Vengeance, and that was how I felt. I found myself unable to calm down. I felt a strong desire for retribution. I sought retribution. The adage, misery loves company, applies here, and I sought someone to share in my misery. Through business connections, I selected Randy and terminated his employment. I did not disclose my involvement, opting not to take credit for the action. I was satisfied with the outcome and had no regrets. This sense of satisfaction was comparable to the warm glow I experienced when doing something nice for Erica, but in this case, it was the satisfaction of doing something bad to Randy. I have spent the last 5 years of my life ruining his. I was certain that a divorce for Erica and me was unavoidable. Why didn't I confront her and file for divorce? Despite her actions, I was hesitant to take that step. Despite her transgressions, I still held genuine affection for her and wished to offer her another opportunity. However, my rational side urged me to prepare for the worst. I informed Erica that our department was undergoing a period of salary freeze, despite my subsequent receiving a raise and a promotion. I was able to secure a promotion that I had been working towards for years. However, I did not disclose the substantial increase in my salary to Erica. Instead, I redirected the majority of the new income to accounts Erica was unaware of. 2 years later, I received another promotion and subsequent raise. I again did not disclose this information to Erica. The rationale behind this decision was to preserve a distinction between personal and professional spheres. Years later, I finally received a salary that was double what I had previously received. I did not disclose this information to Erica. Instead, I redirected the majority of the new income into accounts that Erica was unaware of. 2 years later, I received another promotion and subsequent raise. I did not disclose these changes to Erica. The rationale behind this decision was to safeguard the confidentiality of my financial information in the event of a potential divorce, ensuring that Erica would not have access to the precise details of my income. She would assume that I was still making $40,000 per year, which would inform the terms of our divorce. My superior, who had previously encountered significant challenges in his own divorce, was willing to assist me by officially listing me as a mid-level employee. In the context of my divorce, my spouse was unaware of my actual income. She believed that I was still earning $40,000 per year. Consequently, the divorce was based on this assumption. My boss, who had faced significant challenges in his divorce, was willing to assist me by officially listing me as a mid-level manager. No one outside the company inquired about the rationale behind all the other managers reporting to me. This appeared to align with the company's standard operational practices. A substantial portion of my salary, amounting to 3/4 of my total compensation, was regularly remitted to another company that, from an external perspective, appeared to be one of our vendors. I was not an officer of that company, nor did I hold any ownership stake. In exchange for the utilization of their names, I provided them with annual fishing excursions. These individuals were listed as volunteers, ensuring that there were no salary or tax implications for them. The funds from this company were directly deposited into my offshore account. I established an account for the purpose of ensuring the traceability of the funds if necessary. On 2 occasions, I withdrew a portion of the money. One withdrawal occurred after the wedding of Samantha and Darren, when I made a significant down payment on their house. This was done to assist them in avoiding significant financial strain at the start of their marriage. I did not purchase the house for them. The substantial down payment was made with the intention of helping the couple settle in after their marriage and ensuring their mortgage payments remained below $100 per month. The second withdrawal was for purchasing a second vehicle for Sam and Darren, as their jobs were located in different areas of town, making it more convenient for them. When it came to providing for the children, I exercised caution. The strategy of providing them with a house and a second car actually worked in my favor, as it allowed me to give Erica even less money. The money for their house came from my retirement fund, which would be impacted in the event of a divorce. I was able to leverage the proceeds from the house and car to benefit Erica. The funds for the house came from my retirement account, which would be significantly reduced in the event of a divorce. To facilitate the purchase of the car, I took out a loan, further reducing my disposable income. Randy's proficiency in manufacturing, particularly in the area of inspection, proved to be a valuable asset. He was responsible for inspecting castings. My company was also manufacturing-based, with a significant presence in the direct-to-factory manufacturing sector on a national scale. I had a friend in Boston who was able to check on Randy's progress whenever he secured a new position. Additionally, I consulted with one of our account executives if we had an account with the company Randy. Randy was employed by one of my acquaintances, and I had the opportunity to dine with someone who worked there. Randy was terminated. If we didn't have an account with Ree's new company, we created one, and then Randy was terminated. I maintained a spreadsheet on my computer that was dedicated to keeping track of Randy and all of his misfortunes, some of which I didn't even cause. Over time, Randy's reputation in the manufacturing community became quite negative. In fact, his reputation was so bad that he was unable to secure employment. Just before Randy's passing, his last positions were in landscaping or day labor. Randy's misfortune also had a negative impact on Rhee's marriage. His wife returned to work to support the family, and I did not interfere with her career or personal life. I also made it a priority to ensure that Randy's children received the necessary support and resources. I personally oversaw Randy's daughter-in-law's enrollment in law school. I created a scholarship specifically for her and provided it to her. However, the scholarship program concluded the year she received her degree. The scholarship deposited the full amount into an account that she was unable to locate. Her academic performance was exceptional, and she received several bonuses during her time in school from anonymous benefactors. Randy's financial constraints were a source of personal challenge for him. He was a proud man who aspired to be self-sufficient. The provider expressed satisfaction with the outcome, and his pride in his work was evident. However, he began consuming alcohol in excess, which over time led to an obsessive behavior. It is important to note that he never exhibited violence or abuse towards his wife or daughter. Nevertheless, by the end, he had become a far cry from the man he once was. I also examined the changes my actions brought about in me. I, too, was no longer the man I'd been when I first discovered my wife's infidelity. I had always been a soft-spoken, easygoing person. I had always been honest and open. However, the emotional upheaval of discovering that my partner had repeatedly and deliberately deceived me had a significant impact on my mental state. When I looked in the mirror, I recognized that I was dealing with a psychopath who had methodically and maliciously planned the systematic destruction of a man whose only mistake had been engaging in a brief romantic encounter with the wrong woman. Despite this, I continued to see myself in a positive light. I still saw John Forrest, an upstanding and devoted family man, as the one who had been wronged. Shouldn't a villain have some kind of distinguishable characteristics? Historically, villains were often distinguished by their sartorial choices, such as black hats. I even considered trading my Mustang for a black one, but I had considered those matters and found myself unable to stop. My emotional distress sought retribution more than healing, my soul cried out for vengeance far more than forgiveness. As I observed Erica's life unravel, I recognized that I simply did not trust her. Lack of trust in a significant other can be a grave issue, particularly when considering the commitment to share life with that individual. The consequences of the affair between Erica and Randy were significant. It destroyed our marriage and severely damaged my ability to trust anyone completely for a period of 5 years. The emotional impact of the affair, as well as its subsequent professional ramifications, was significant. While addressing the situation with Randy was a priority, I also had to initiate the divorce process. Unlike most men, who have a few days or weeks to protect their assets, I had 5 years to prepare. I had initially anticipated a longer preparation period, but Erica's interest had waned. While I was able to successfully manage Randy's assets, I also took the time to prepare for my divorce. Unlike most men, who have a few days or weeks to protect their assets, I had 5 years to prepare. I had originally planned for more time, but Erica had been fading at the time of our divorce. She was still relatively attractive. I had intended to wait until she was on the full downswing, but Randy had not been able to keep going for as long as I thought. During this period, I strategically allocated financial resources to ensure their safety. I did not have to worry about the house. Following the divorce, my intention was to wait until Erica's situation had stabilized. However, Randy had been unable to maintain this for as long as I had anticipated. For the past 5 years, I had been accumulating and storing financial resources. The house in which we resided was not owned by us, so concerns about that property were not a factor. The residence had been in my family for generations. We continued to reside in the home because my parents, who were still living, did not require a residence of that size. During the divorce proceedings, I ensured that the legal counsel was aware of my parents' ownership of the property, and we came to an agreement that allowed me to reside there rent-free. Upon Erica's return from the conference, she conveyed to Randy via text message her enjoyment of their shared dinner and the pleasure she derived from their physical affection. She also expressed a longing for the intimacy they shared in the past, but she was pleased that there had been no infidelity on her part this year. She expressed a sense of remorse for her past transgressions, acknowledging that she was certain Randy felt similarly about his wife. She expressed that their current relationship, characterized by zest romance, was more fulfilling because they could enjoy each other's company without any feelings of guilt. Perhaps as they aged, their love had become more independent of physical expression. The mere act of being in each other's company was sufficient. Without the need for physical intimacy they would remain together for all eternity. She concluded the text with, "Until next year, my love." I read this message while waiting for my luggage at the airport. I was overwhelmed with emotions, and I felt a strong desire to express my frustration with Erica. Despite my feelings for her, my perspective on our relationship had significantly changed. It was challenging for me to maintain composure during those moments. Upon Erica's return home, I was seated in the living room, watching a football game. She entered the room and embraced me, attempting to kiss me. I moved away from her and informed her that I had a cold and was not wanting to infect her. I proposed that we use the weekend to recuperate. She replied, smiling, "What is happening this weekend?" I inquired. I informed her that we were going out together. On vacation together, as she had previously mentioned. We typically go after my conference, which I find uninteresting. I inquired if she would be open to considering taking Sam on a mother-daughter vacation this year. Unfortunately, I am unable to take time off work this week, but it is the weekend, so it would only be a 2-day absence. Imagine 4 nights and 3 days in Hawaii, just the two of us. It's an appealing prospect. We might never leave the hotel room. I have purchased a selection of new items to wear for you. I reflected on how many of these items Randy might have noticed. If we had reconciled earlier, Erica, we would have had to deal with a wage freeze, and the company would have had to find ways to cut costs. It was essential to ensure that I was never viewed as a cost that could be reduced. I assured her that I understood, and she said that she would go call Sam. She requested that I be in the bedroom within 10 minutes of reaching the upstairs area. I proceeded up the stairs and overheard her conversing with my daughter, Samantha, via telephone concurrently. She sent a text message to Randy, inquiring about the receipt of her previous message. I felt disrespected by her actions. Erica did not retire for the evening. Instead, she actively sought me out. I reclined on the sofa, feigning slumber. Over the following weeks, I came to terms with the situation. This was a substantial adjustment. I found myself becoming a far superior actor than I had ever imagined possible. We engaged in sexual relations, more or less, as. She did not come to bed, rather, she came looking for me. I reclined on the couch and feigned sleep. Over the course of the following weeks, I came to terms with the situation. This change required a substantial adjustment on my part. I found myself capable of acting in a way I had never imagined possible. Our physical intimacy remained largely unchanged. I am unaware of whether Erica enjoyed it as much, but I certainly did. I no longer felt compelled to prioritize her orgasm, as I had in the past. I had to adopt a completely different perspective. My perspective shifted, and I no longer viewed Erica as merely my wife or my love. Instead, I regarded her as simply another woman with whom I was engaging in physical intimacy. Our relationship was characterized by a certain raw and unromantic nature, yet it was also more adventurous. During the period of guilt following the conference, when Erica sought to reassure me of our relationship, she rarely rejected my advances. This marked the first instance of our engaging in sexual relations in that manner, despite the passage of years into our marriage. However, Erica did voice her discontent, stating that she was not the type of woman to engage in such activities. The following year, during the conference, I inquired about the individual's whereabouts. I closely observed her, searching for any indication of communication with Randy. I examined her phone account online to verify if she had received any calls from the Boston area. There were no calls from the Boston area, but there were multiple text messages sent to Ree's phone. She expressed frustration at Randy's lack of response. She contacted a few of her acquaintances who were also acquainted with Randy and learned that he had experienced a series of unfortunate events. This was the first she had heard of his recent misfortunes. Following the conference the previous year, he was assaulted and robbed. He was also terminated from his position, and his whereabouts were unknown. She sent him several text messages inviting him to meet her for dinner at her hotel, but he did not respond. Her final attempt was when she enlisted a friend who knew Randy to go to his house and inform him that she wanted to hear from him. Randy told the friend that he didn't remember her, and since he no longer worked in the industry, he saw no reason to contact her, especially since he wasn't attending. Erica was devastated when she learned that she would not be able to attend the conference this year. I encouraged her to attend, as she had done every year, despite her reluctance. I pointed out that her situation this year would be no different from last year. I inquired about the change in her plans, although I was already aware that my flight landed 2 hours after hers. I closely monitored Erica throughout the day, and I nearly missed my own flight. Erica did not stay the night, she flew back home at the end of the day. As she was heading for the airport, I called her and informed her of the situation. I conveyed to her how much I had missed her. I informed her that I had to go out of town for the evening, but it didn't really matter since she'd be at her conference. Erica expressed her discontent with the separation, stating that she was flying home early. I had anticipated her attempting to engage in social interactions with other individuals, but this did not occur. Instead, she attended the lectures and the expo, and upon the conclusion of the event, she returned home. The following year, she invited me to attend the conference with her to demonstrate the lack of interest it held for me. However, she did not attend the conference for the subsequent 2 years. Erica has consistently demonstrated a high degree of fidelity towards me over the years. I have periodically observed her, and on occasion, I have engaged the services of a private investigator for brief periods. However, she has not exhibited any actions that would cause me to suspect infidelity. If I were not privy to the situation, I would be inclined to believe that she is the ideal spouse. She has made a genuine effort to be a model wife. However, once trust is breached, it can be challenging to fully restore the relationship to its previous state. Consequently, when we sat on our deck and relaxed in our large swing, I often reflected on whether she was contemplating Randy and the potential of their relationship. Erica and I were in a long-term relationship that ended with one of us passing away. On a particular Sunday morning, she woke me up by performing oral sex on me. I speculated that her actions were influenced by her desire to do the same to Randy. Despite my commitment to Erica, I could not dismiss the feeling that her intentions were not entirely transparent. For the past 5 years, Erica has provided cleaning services in exchange for financial compensation, and in the 2 years leading up to the divorce, her fees were quite substantial. I frequently found myself observing her physique, and at times, I couldn't help but feel a sense of voyeurism, as if I were an agricultural inspector examining his crops. It is evident that her breasts are beginning to lose firmness. I have observed this change, and I anticipate that further lines will appear on her face in the near future. These changes are becoming more noticeable. I would recommend that Erica indulge in a rich dessert. I would prefer to maintain her current weight. She might respond, "I love your." Her breasts are beginning to lose firmness. I would be able to notice this soon, or I would see a few more lines on her face. We are reaching a point where it is noticeable. I would advise Erica, "Honey, I suggest having another piece of cake. I don't want to gain any weight." She would respond with an affectionate, "I love your." I would reassure her that her actions were of no consequence. She would respond with a smile, a hug, or a kiss on the cheek, which was the extent of my tolerance. She was certain that I meant that regardless of how much weight she gained, my love for her would not change. However, I meant that it didn't matter because I was certain that I would inform her of the situation, and she would respond with a smile, a hug, or a kiss on the cheek, which was the extent of my permission. She was certain that my love for her would not waver, regardless of her weight. However, I was confident that our marriage would soon come to an end. Her weight, whether it was significantly above or below average, had no impact on my sentiments. Our lives were satisfactory on the surface. We had friends who wed, and we spent a significant amount of time with our daughter and her husband. For a considerable period, our lives were satisfactory. I genuinely believed that Erica had almost forgotten about her affair or thought she had gotten away with it. After all, 5 years is a considerable duration. If the affair had gone undetected for such a prolonged period, its relevance might be called into question. A couple of days before the illness, I was informed by one of my associates in Boston that Randy had been terminated from his most recent position. He was employed in the fast food industry due to his alcohol consumption, and the manager prohibited him from working inside the restaurant. He was responsible for the landscaping around the restaurant in exchange for minimum wage, performing tasks such as shoveling snow and trimming grass. On certain days, he was required to wear a costume that made him look like the restaurant's mascot clown and spin a sign inviting passing drivers to eat at the restaurant. Randy had experienced significant life changes over the past 5 years. Now in his late 40s, he was a college graduate who was earning minimum wage, dressed like a clown, and promoting burgers. The majority of his co-workers were between the ages of 18 and 25, with the exception of the store manager. Randy's circumstances were frequently cited by his peers as an example of why they believed that pursuing a college education was not worthwhile. In front of Randy, one teenager even informed his mother that he intended to quit his job at the restaurant, citing his deteriorating grades in high school as the reason. He inquired, "What is the purpose of continuing? Even if I graduate, you and Pop will have spent hundreds of." With the exception of the store manager, all employees were between the ages of 18 and 25. They used Randy as an example of why pursuing a college education was a waste of time. One child even informed his mother, in front of Randy, that he intended to quit working at the restaurant because his grades in high school had been declining. He reiterated his question to her, seeking clarity on the value of his education. He expressed skepticism about the value of a college education, questioning whether it would guarantee employment opportunities or prevent him from returning to a similar situation in the future. "Mom, I'm currently in a better position than he is, and I haven't even attended college yet. I am gainfully employed in the restaurant industry, earning a salary that exceeds the minimum wage. If I were to attend college, I might even earn less." As I've previously mentioned, Randy had invested a significant amount of financial resources in his education, similar to the investment my parents made in their own education. However, there is a possibility that I might not achieve the same level of success as they did. I currently hold a position in a restaurant setting, and my salary exceeds the minimum wage. However, should I decide to pursue higher education, there is a possibility that my salary might decrease. Randy's disapproval of his son's life choices further contributed to his depression. Randy was so distraught that he failed to notice where he was throwing his sign. Some observers suggested that it was intentional, while others believed it was an accident. Randy threw the sign up in the air, and it landed on a customer, shocking her and causing her bag of food to fall out. Randy's reaction to the incident was one of depression. He was so distraught that he failed to notice where he was throwing his sign. Some observers suggested that it was deliberate, while others insisted it was an accident. Randy threw the sign up in the air, and it landed on a customer, shocking her and causing her bag of food to fall out. This prompted a verbal altercation between Randy and the customer, escalating the situation. When law enforcement arrived on the scene, Randy was still kicking one of the hamburgers down the street, as if it were a street hockey puck, and calling her names. Consequently, Randy was terminated on the spot. He received his final paycheck and used it to purchase a bottle and a rope. He returned home and used his college degree one final time before consuming alcohol. He had studied manufacturing technology in college and used his degree to make a high-quality noose. He climbed onto a chair, placed the noose around his neck, and began to drink. As he drank, he reflected on the joys and mistakes of his life. He reflected on his career's decline, his daughter's lack of respect for him, and his wife's disdain for him. They had once been a couple that everyone they knew envied, but now she barely tolerated him, and they slept in separate bedrooms. Randy believed that his approach to dealing with successive failures was what had doomed his marriage, not the changes in his career. He had always anticipated setbacks. Randy passed away without ever realizing that it was my actions, not his career, that had ultimately contributed to the downfall of his marriage. He attributed his misfortunes to mere bad luck. I had always intended to disclose this information to him, as it would have served as the culmination of my personal vindication. However, I never had the opportunity to do so. Randy's final thoughts were about Erica. He attributed the source of his misfortune to her. Randy's untimely demise occurred without his awareness that I had been orchestrating events to hinder his progress throughout his life. He perceived the circumstances as mere bad luck. I had always planned to confess to him on that day as my final act of vengeance. However, that opportunity was never realized. Randy's final thoughts before consuming alcohol in excess, losing his balance, and dying were about Erica. He believed that his misfortunes began with his friendship with her. He never admitted to having an extramarital affair and sleeping with a married woman. He attributed all of his misfortunes to Erica. The narrative began when Erica's husband discovered their affair and violently attacked Randy, resulting in his hospitalization. Following this incident, Randy's life never improved, and it continued to decline. His final thoughts were a wish that he would never. He attributed all his misfortunes to Erica. The catalyst for Randy's misfortunes was the discovery of their affair by Erica's husband, who violently assaulted Randy, resulting in his hospitalization. From that point on, his life had been marked by unrelenting misfortune, and he had never recovered. His final thoughts were a wish that he had never met Erica. His final words were also directed towards her. He believed her to be a witch. As the alcohol in his system caused his brain to shut down, he thought that he would figure out some way to get back at her when he woke up. Ree's wife came home and discovered the body. She was unable to express the depth of her emotions. She felt a sense of relief for her husband, knowing he had endured significant suffering. His final words addressed her as well. He had perceived her to be a witch. As the alcohol in his system caused his brain to shut down, he thought to himself that he would figure out some way to get back at her when he woke up. Ree's wife came home and discovered the body. She was unable to express any emotional response. She felt a sense of relief for him, knowing that he had endured significant hardship in recent years and that this would allow him to find peace. He had reached a state of numbness, beyond the capacity to feel pain or suffering. One of Erica's former colleagues, who was acquainted with both her and Randy, had emailed her to inform her of his death and the circumstances surrounding it. Erica had called her and obtained all of the details about the last few years of Ree's life. Erica was shocked. I had been in contact with my PI before Erica was notified, so I anticipated the news. In recent years, he had managed to move on from his past. He had overcome his pain and suffering. One of Erica's former colleagues, who knew her and Randy, emailed her to inform her of his death and how it had come about. Erica contacted her to obtain details about the final years of Ree's life. Erica expressed surprise that I had already been informed by my PI, indicating a potential deviation from her usual behavior. I observed her closely, but I was unable to discern whether her demeanor was due to the loss of a loved one or a reflection on the transient nature of life. That night, she attempted to exhaust me. She held on to me as if concerned about losing me. She even shed a few tears when I inquired about her reasons. I speculated that her distraught demeanor might have been due to a recent loss, or perhaps a reflection on the transient nature of life. During the encounter, she initiated intimate relations with the intention of exhausting me. Her emotional response, evidenced by her clinging onto me and shedding tears when I inquired about her motivations, was notable. I had anticipated a diminution of our personal connection, yet her response was unanticipated. She expressed affection and gratitude for our relationship, stating, "I just love you so much. I'm so glad to have you. I don't know what I would do if anything ever happened to take you away from me." Her actions revealed her vulnerability, and during the second round of intimate activities, we engaged in sexual relations as usual. I engaged in behaviors that I typically avoid. I was taken aback when she revealed that she had lost a friend from her past, but her words were far from that. She expressed her love for me and her gratitude for our relationship. I inquired about the possibility of her leaving me, to which she replied that she would never do so. During the second round of our encounter, I engaged in behaviors that I had not exhibited in years. Instead of engaging in vigorous physical intimacy, I spent a considerable amount of time kissing her, holding her, and expressing my love for her. I naively believed that I was healing and could trust her again. It was as if a scab had finally formed over my wounded heart after 5 years. The following evening, during a shared meal with Sammy and Darren, I held hands with Samantha and exchanged longing glances. Samantha inquired about the longevity of our relationship, given the years we had been together. Then Erica spoke up, and her comment about naming my grandson after Randy inadvertently undermined the moment. The situation never returned to normal. I had invested years in preparation for this transition, anticipating the shift in our dynamic. Darren and I held hands during the meal. We exchanged glances that conveyed our feelings. Samantha inquired about the longevity of our relationship, and Erica offered an unsolicited opinion, suggesting Samantha name my grandson after Randy. This shift in dynamics had a significant impact on our relationship. I had invested years in preparation for this moment, and I understood then why my efforts with Randy had not been sufficient. I had contributed significantly to Randy's well-being over the years, but my actions had been equivalent to repeatedly discharging a firearm at him, reloading, and then firing again. Randy was not the sole cause of my pain, in fact, he was the lesser of two evils. Randy had not made a promise before God and all of our friends to love, honor, and cherish me all the days of his life. Prior to confronting him in Boston and disciplining him, Randy had been Erica. I had not been acquainted with Randy. For the past 5 years, my actions had been shameful and, more than anything else, cowardly. It was as if I had been a normal person. Randy had not made a promise to love, honor, and cherish me all the days of his life. In fact, Erica had made that same promise. I was unaware of Randy's true feelings. For the past 5 years, my actions had been shameful and cowardly. It was as if I had been a regular high school student and had been pushed down by a much larger student athlete. In an act of retaliation, I ran across campus and physically assaulted one of the chess team members. While my actions may have been misguided, Randy had indeed merited some form of retribution. Erica merited more. In the days following the dinner, Erica attempted to return home, only to encounter the same individual who had previously assaulted me. In an act of retribution, I crossed the campus and physically assaulted a member of the chess team. While my retaliation may have been misguided, Randy's actions merited some form of response. Erica's actions merited more severe consequences. Following the dinner, Erica attempted to return home, but I returned her clothing and personal belongings that I had packed for her the first night. She contacted me, and I proposed that the following Saturday would be an opportune day for her to visit and take any furniture or appliances she felt entitled. Toy suggested that she bring our daughter and son. I provided her with all of her clothing and personal belongings that I had packed for her the previous night. When she contacted me, I informed her that I thought Saturday would be a good day for her to visit and take any furniture or appliances that she thought she deserved. I proposed that she bring our daughter and son-in-law, and that one of them could contact me to confirm that the items she took were in accordance with my wishes. I informed her that I would be unavailable on Saturday, but would return that evening. However, upon arriving at my driveway on Saturday, the situation did not unfold as I had anticipated. Upon arriving home that Saturday evening, I found Erica and Samantha still present, and they requested a conversation. During this conversation, Erica expressed her love for me, stating, "John, I love you with all of my heart. I would never intentionally cause you harm. I apologize. I'm so much sorrier than you'd ever believe. I believe you are quite attractive." I apologized, stating that I found her to be the least effective spouse I had ever seen. She requested that we discuss the matter further. We had been together for nearly 30 years. We couldn't abandon all that history because of something that occurred a long time ago. "John, why didn't you address this with me when you found out?" "I can't. John, I'm starting to understand a lot of things now. I understand why there's been a wall between us for the past few years. Is this the reason? Imagine how much pain you've been carrying around with you for the past 5 years. I am starting to grasp a great deal of the situation. We have been together for nearly 30 years. It would be imprudent to disregard our history and the lessons it has taught us. John, why didn't you address this with me when you became aware of it? I am unable to do so. We've been together for almost 30 years. It's not possible for us to disregard all that history and the lessons it's taught us. I'm beginning to understand a lot of things now. I understand why there's been a wall between us for the past few years. Is this the reason? I apologize. I previously stated that you may be the saddest excuse for a wife that I've ever seen. Would it be possible to discuss this matter further? We've both been carrying around a lot of pain from the past 5 years. I'm starting to understand many things, including why there's been a wall between us for the past few years. Is that an accurate assessment? I nodded in agreement. Last night was wonderful. You mentioned that it was the most fulfilling sexual experience we've ever had. We've had better. Did you learn of Randy's passing and assume that our issues were behind us until I mentioned it? I nodded in affirmation. John, would you mind letting me continue? I really need to get this out of my system. I am aware that my actions were inappropriate, but the incident occurred years ago. Yes, I am aware that you and she have parted ways. I have some questions that I'd like to address. Once I have finished, would you be willing to address them? Erica, I understand that I am not required to listen to any of the things I've said. I could remove you from this office at this moment. However, I am willing to give you the opportunity to share your perspective. My goal is to resolve this divorce as quickly as possible so that I can move forward. My life. If I were to listen to you now, you would have had the opportunity to express your perspective, which would prevent you from going to court and claiming that I did not provide a sufficient opportunity for dialogue. Please begin sharing your perspective. However, there are a couple of things I'd like you to explain while you talk. When did this begin with Randy, and what was the reason for it? Is it 2010? We got married in 1980, so it would have started in 1982. She stated that this had been going on for 28 years. I was taken aback by this revelation, as I was unaware of the duration of the relationship. It appears that there has been a difference in perspective between you and Randy regarding the timing of this relationship. Perhaps he only considers the time from when you two began sharing a bed. I looked at Samantha, and she looked back, saying, "This began in 1982, as we got married in 1980, so it has been going on for 28 years. I screamed. I had no idea it had been that long. It appears that there is a discrepancy in the timing of our relationship, as perceived by you and Randy. Perhaps he only calculated it from the onset of your romantic relationship." I looked at Samantha, and she looked at her mother. John, there is no possibility that Samantha is anyone's child except yours. Samantha was born in January. The conference is scheduled for July. It is highly improbable, but you may have entertained the possibility, didn't you? I'm sure you considered the possibility of this. Samantha looked at her mother. Her expression conveyed a clear sentiment. Samantha, my dear, I have loved you more than life itself for the past 5 years. You have been the only person I could trust completely. I have dedicated most of my heart to you, my darling. But, could we do a DNA test? It is of no consequence now. I promise to always treat you and my grandchildren with the same respect and care. I need to verify this. I told you, she began, so why should I believe anything you've ever said? I inquired calmly. From the start of our marriage, you have been dishonest with me. Given the dissolution of our marriage, it can be deduced that you have indeed lied to me throughout our entire matrimony. No, John. It's not that simple. I love you. I would like to verify something. I previously informed you that she initiated the relationship. I find myself unable to accept any of your statements. I inquired calmly from the beginning of our marriage. However, since the dissolution of our marriage, it has come to my attention that you have been dishonest with me. This suggests that you have been dishonest with me throughout our marriage. John, I'm asking you to clarify your statements. I love you. Perhaps I'm not articulating it clearly. Please begin to communicate with me. I informed her that I am willing to give you time to explain, but you must commit fully to the process. This is the last time we will communicate without legal counsel. John, I urge you to reconsider your position. She stated, I only cheated on you once, Anne. Randy, I've always had your best interests at heart, but you haven't been able to see the truth. I am willing to give you time to understand, but you must commit fully to the process. This will be the final conversation between us without legal counsel. John, I implore you to reconsider your position. I only cheated on you once, and that was years ago. It is not a justifiable reason to end a 30-year marriage. For the past 5 years, I have not had any contact with Randy. The current situation seems to be a form of retribution for an event that occurred in the past. This course of action seems disproportionate and unfair. Your actions are not aligned with rational thinking. I am certain that you are not. I have made it clear that I have not been in contact with him. Regarding the inquiry she has made, I believe you are not privy to the information she has. It has been 5 years since we last conversed. While it is natural to face challenges when moving on from the past, it is crucial to maintain perspective. I have not had any contact with Randy in the last 5 years. I am also aware that you have not had any contact with him either. I did attempt to contact him 4 years ago, the year after the last conference we attended together. I attempted to ascertain his arrival time for our yearly gathering, but he did not respond to any of my texts. I also explored alternative contact methods. It has been 5 years since you last heard from Randy. You did attempt to contact him 4 years ago, the year after the last conference you attended together, to inquire about his arrival time at the conference for your yearly gathering. However, he did not respond to any of your texts. You contacted his friends, who informed you that he did not recall you. While he did remember you, he was hesitant to respond due to concerns that doing so might result in severe physical harm, or even the potential revelation of his marital infidelity, which could potentially lead to the dissolution of his marriage. She stated, with a smile, "How do I know that?" I inquired. The last message you sent was 5 years ago. Friends, he told you that he didn't remember you. He did, but he was afraid. He was aware that if he responded to you, I would either severely injure him or, worse, inform his wife, which would ruin his marriage. She inquired, with a hint of sarcasm, "How can I be sure?" I inquired about the last message you sent him 5 years ago, a text message in which you expressed your commitment to each other's enduring love until one of you passed away. It has barely been 5 years, but he is now deceased, is he not? However, it's possible that your assertion was accurate. You expressed sufficient affection for him to attempt to persuade Sam to name my grandson after him, despite the dissolution of our marriage. John, I understand your confusion. You may not recall that I had been married for 2 years when I attended that conference. It was during that time that I met Randy, who was very kind. I missed you dearly, and it was the first time I had been away from you. I frequently left the lectures to try to call you, but you were working. Randy and John, I asked that you please understand the situation was different. She mentioned that we had only been married for 2 years when I attended that first conference. I met Randy there, and he was the nicest person I'd ever met. I missed you dearly, it was the first time I had been away from you. I repeatedly left the lectures to contact you, but your work commitments prevented it. Randy's demeanor and approach were reminiscent of you, making me feel at ease. The following year, we met again, and our relationship deepened. We even shared a meal together. We conversed at length until the restaurant staff eventually requested that we conclude our visit. I never wanted to stop talking to him, but you have to understand that a lot of it was due to his striking similarity to you. I found myself frequently seeking his company. During this period, our relationship was still in its early stages, and I frequently sought his perspective on various situations to gauge your reactions. It wasn't until the 4th year that we engaged in sexual activity, and even then, it was an unplanned occurrence. On one occasion, both of us had consumed significant amounts of alcohol, which resulted in us sharing a bed. The following morning, we awoke to this unplanned encounter. Due to his striking resemblance to you, we had not yet established a long-term relationship. On occasion, I sought his perspective on various matters. It was not until the 4th year that we engaged in sexual activity, and it was unintentional. This occurred after both of us had consumed significant amounts of alcohol, which resulted in us ending up in bed. The following morning, we were both overwhelmed with feelings of guilt. We found it difficult to even look at each other, and we did not exchange farewells. During the subsequent year, which marked the 5th year of our relationship, we deliberately avoided each other. However, I must admit that I missed my friend. During this period, I was pregnant with Sam, and unless Samantha required over a year to complete her pregnancy, it was not feasible for us to be together. We were both consumed with guilt, and we could barely even look at each other. We did not exchange farewells. The subsequent year marked the 5th year of our deliberate avoidance, but I must admit that I missed my friend. I was pregnant with Sam that year, so it was not possible for him to be Samantha's father, unless she had taken over a year to come to term. We did not share a meal or converse during that period. The following year, he approached me to express his remorse for our previous year's separation. He took responsibility for his actions and expressed his belief that it was unwise for us to avoid each other due to an error on our part. Consequently, we had dinner and discussed the situation. I must admit that for over 2 years, I had been avoiding him and fantasizing about what it would have been like to have sex with him. We had both been under the influence of alcohol, and I wished to recollect the experience. At that time, it had been 6 years, and we had only had one instance of sleeping together. During that year, we had dinner together. For over 2 years, I had deliberately distanced myself from him, engaging in fantasies about the potential sexual encounters we might have had. Both of us had been under the influence of alcohol, and I sought to recollect the experience. At that time, 6 years had passed since our only encounter, which also occurred under the influence of alcohol. The following year, we had dinner together, but there was a palpable tension between us. It appeared that our primary motivation for attending the conferences was to reconnect, and in the 8th year, we engaged in sexual activity. I take full responsibility for my actions and feel the most remorse regarding that incident. For the past 3 years, I have been avoiding him. The following year, there was a period of minimal interaction between us, characterized by a certain tension. This tension stemmed from our tendency to use conference attendance as a primary means of maintaining contact with one another. In an effort to alleviate this tension, we engaged in sexual activity. I must admit that I have experienced feelings of guilt regarding this event for the past 3 years, as I had been avoiding Randy and fantasizing about what it would be like to have sex with him. The experience did not meet my expectations. It is important to note that the quality of a sexual encounter is not determined by physical attributes, such as size. However, Randy's equipment did not match my own in terms of dimensions. Additionally, Randy had been involved with his wife for an extended period, which might have contributed to the situation. He was intimately familiar with his wife's sexual inclinations, but they did not align with my preferences. I recognized that I had made a significant error. The following year, I deliberately distanced myself from Randy. This did not entail refraining from physical intimacy. I continued to engage in sexual activity. Instead, I distanced myself both emotionally and practically, withdrawing from his life. I did, however, make an effort to. I approached him toward the end of the evening, feigning a long-awaited encounter after conducting a search for him. I inquired about his wife and then departed. The following year, John and I attended that conference for the 10th time. Randy greeted me at the airport, emphasizing the significance of our connection. I approached him toward the end of the event and feigned surprise at having just encountered him after having searched for him for some time. I inquired about his wife and then took my leave. The following year, John, we had been attending that conference for a decade. Randy was awaiting my arrival at the airport. He emphasized the significance of that year, referring to it as our anniversary. I ultimately granted him a respite, enduring the situation to avoid causing him discomfort. Randy was, in fact, a very pleasant person. I conveyed my sentiments regarding his amiability. He was so amiable that engaging in intimate relations with him was more valuable than one's own. At that time, we had been friends for a decade. It was as if it were our anniversary, so I gave him a mercy sleep and endured it because I didn't want to hurt his feelings. He was a genuinely pleasant person. In fact, he was so amiable that engaging in intimate relations with him was more valuable than one's own. John, it's crucial to understand that he shared many similarities with you. I did not wish to cause him discomfort, and this occurrence was limited to a single annual occurrence. There was nothing particularly unusual or uncharacteristic about it. It was akin to the extramarital affairs that often occur among older individuals. In contrast, I invite you to reflect on the nature of your own conduct. There is no comparison between the two. Randy's approach was not experimental. It was as if Randy and I had contrasting approaches to physical intimacy. He preferred romantic encounters devoid of physical affection. I, on the other hand, have never performed oral sex on him, and our encounters have always been within the confines of a single location. Erica, you may not fully comprehend this either. Following the discovery of your existence, I initiated a shift in our physical intimacy. Please consider the following: I allowed you to perform oral sex on me, but I no longer reciprocate. I am no longer engaging in intercourse with you. Our intimate relations were conducted without any emotional connection. I refrained from providing oral stimulation, and he had only been in one location. As you can see, Erica, this is a complex situation. I should mention that our exploration of new experiences began after I became acquainted with you. Please consider the following: I permitted you to perform oral stimulation, but I no longer engage in that act. I am abstaining from any intimate acts with you. My decision to be with you was driven by a desire to have an experience that Randy lacked, but also by a desire to cause you pain and compel you to engage in actions you were reluctant to pursue. Until recently, when you stated that it was the most fulfilling intimate experience we had ever had, you and I had not. I have engaged in intimate relations with numerous individuals, yet none have matched the depth and intimacy experienced with you. Our interactions were devoid of any emotional connection or romantic involvement. You were simply a physical presence, a bed partner. This led to a sense of disappointment, and I spent the subsequent years grappling with this emotional void. I found solace in the knowledge that each year, I would eagerly anticipate our annual meetings with Randy at the conference. We engaged in regular sexual relations. While I initially felt reluctant, I came to recognize the necessity of enduring these encounters. However, over time, I began to rationalize this behavior. At times, I cited my menstrual cycle as a reason, while at others, I pretended to have a yeast infection. This pattern persisted for approximately 3 years, after which we would resume our intimate activities. Thereafter, I would take a few years off from these encounters, and the cycle would repeat. By the time the 4th or 5th year had elapsed, we had not engaged in sexual activity for a substantial period. John often discussed his feelings regarding his relationship with me, expressing a deep affection for my company. However, I found it challenging to understand the depth of his feelings. We frequently conveyed our mutual affection, but I never fully embraced or reciprocated those feelings. My primary concern was to avoid causing him pain, and consequently, I chose to inflict it upon myself. John inquired about the nature of the injury. She asked, how was the injury sustained? The injury had persisted for over 2 decades. During that period, you had engaged in sexual activity with me for a significant portion of those years. I engaged in sexual relations with Randy on approximately 000 occasions, and I found them all to be highly satisfactory. In contrast, I had sexual relations with Randy approximately 8 times at the most, and I found every instance to be disagreeable. If I had prioritized Randy over you, I could comprehend the situation. However, that was never the case. If I had given less than my full attention or done something to embarrass you, I could understand the situation. However, I can assure you that this was never the case. I value our relationship too much to behave in such a manner. This incident was a one-time occurrence, and it took place in a remote area so that no one who knew us would have been in the vicinity. Therefore, it is impossible for you to have previously experienced embarrassment regarding this matter, including the year you physically assaulted Randy and brought the matter to a conclusion. The situation was already coming to a natural conclusion. Given your awareness of my communications with him, you are likely also aware that during dinner, we discussed the greater fulfillment we derived from each other's company without engaging in sexual activity. This relationship would have naturally concluded over time. I had no intention of engaging in sexual activity with him again. This perspective aligns with my interpretation of, we were better without the guilt. I was simply attempting to terminate the relationship in a graceful manner. I anticipated that the relationship would naturally drift apart. John, I ask you to believe me when I say that I love you. I love you, and I want what's best for us both. The actions I took with Randy were regrettable, but they were also a long time ago, and I was uncertain how to move forward from them. Our history, love, and shared life are far too significant to ignore. I implore you not to abandon this relationship. I looked back at her, attempting to process her words. I could see the anger in her eyes, but I also recognized the pain and sincerity in them. This was the woman I had loved for decades. She was the mother of my child, my partner in life. I understand your feelings of betrayal, Erica. You made a mistake and regret it, but you did in fact betray me and us. Each instance you met with him and professed your love for him, you took something away from us. Your actions have caused significant emotional distress, and I am unable to accept your justification of the situation. While your remorse is evident, the fact remains that you have been unfaithful. You have been unfaithful to me, to us, every time you met with him, every time you said you loved him. This has led to a breach of trust, and I am no longer able to place my faith in you or in our marriage. While I acknowledge your remorse and potential motivations for your actions, I am unable to move past this transgression. She was visibly distraught as she listened. John, please, she implored. I will do anything to rectify this situation. Anything. I would like to express my trust in you and our marriage. While I can see that you are sorry and perhaps understand the reasons for your actions, I do not believe I can ever move past this. Tears streamed down her face as she listened. John, please, she implored. I am willing to do whatever it takes to rectify this situation. I am willing to do whatever it takes. Please give us another chance. We are willing to seek counseling. We can address these issues and move forward, I implored. Please do not terminate our marriage over an issue that has been resolved for so long. I shook my head in response. This issue goes beyond the affair, Erica. It's the lies and deception. For 28 years, you have kept this information from me. For 28 years, you've. Samantha, I urge you to consider the impact of your actions on our marriage. The affair and subsequent deception have been a source of tremendous pain and strain over the past 28 years. You have prevented me from making informed decisions about my own life and my relationship with someone who has caused me so much harm. I urge you to consider the choices available to me, including the option to end this marriage. I understand that you have taken away my right to make these decisions on my own, and I ask you to respect my autonomy in this matter. Erica nodded in agreement. She was comforted by her father. Samantha stated, Mom has made mistakes, but she's trying to make it right. Would you be willing to try to work through this for me, for the sake of the grandchildren? I looked at my daughter, and she reflected the pain in my eyes. Samantha, I love you. I love you more than anything, but this issue has been a source of emotional distress for years, and I am unable to continue living in this state of uncertainty. Erica attempted to interject, but I cut her off, stating, Erica, I do not wish to hear any further comments on the matter. You have already expressed your perspective. Erica, I'm afraid I can't move forward with you in this situation. I've tried to be patient, but I've reached my limit. I am prepared to move forward with my life. I understand that you have your own needs, and I am fine with you taking whatever you need from the house. However, I need to be out by the end of the week. Samantha implored her father. I apologize, Sam. I said, my voice breaking, but I need to do this. I can no longer tolerate this betrayal. Erica collapsed into a chair, her body shaking with sobs. Samantha knelt beside her, attempting to provide comfort. I stood up and walked out of the house. The weight of years of betrayal and pain pressed down on me as I drove away. I reflected on the years we had spent together and the memories we had shared. It was disheartening to consider that Erica's extramarital affairs and dishonesty had tainted those memories. However, I understood that maintaining the relationship would only exacerbate the emotional distress. It was imperative that I find a way to heal and move forward with my life. I spent the next few days. I proceeded to organize my affairs. I initiated divorce proceedings and made arrangements for Erica to relocate. Samantha made several attempts to initiate a dialogue, but I declined to engage further in the matter. I decided to focus on the future, and on the day Erica moved, I was ready to move forward with my life. The day of Erica's move was a mixture of emotions. She took only what she needed, leaving behind many of the items we had accumulated over the years. As she departed the premises for the last time, she turned to look at me. Her eyes conveyed a sense of sorrow. She expressed her apologies to me, her voice barely audible. I empathized with Erica's perspective. Her departure was a solemn occasion. She gathered only the essentials, leaving behind a significant portion of our shared history. As she departed, she cast a final glance in my direction. Her eyes conveyed a profound sense of emotion. John, I'm sorry, she said, her voice barely audible. I understand, Erica. I acknowledged her sentiment but emphasized the need for more than words. With these words, she departed, leaving me to face the challenges ahead. I recognized the difficulty of the road ahead, but I was also determined to find a path to rebuild my life, to find peace and contentment once more. Over the next few months, I concentrated on myself. I dedicated myself to my work, spent time with friends, and even began dating again. This period was marked by challenges, but I gradually began to heal. I came to understand that Erica's betrayal was significant, but it was not the defining factor of my identity. I was determined to find happiness again. Eventually, Samantha came to terms with the divorce. While she still held affection for her mother, she came to understand the reasons behind my decision to leave. Our relationship strengthened as we offered each other support during challenging times. Ultimately, I found solace in the knowledge that I had made the decision that was best for me. I reclaimed my life and my happiness, and while the scars of Erica's betrayal would always be there, they no longer controlled me. I was able to move forward and establish a new future, one filled with hope and possibility. 5 years have passed since I made the difficult decision to move on from Erica. Since then, I have dedicated these years to rebuilding my life. However, the pain and betrayal from Erica still resonate in my mind, especially after the shocking revelation that Samantha is not my biological daughter. This information was revealed during a contentious discussion with Erica regarding the dissolution of our marriage. Settlement. Erica, in a moment of desperation, revealed that Samantha was Randy's daughter, as confirmed by a paternity test. This revelation was devastating, as the girl I had loved and raised as my own was not biologically mine. The betrayal was significant, and it was the last straw. Despite her loyalty to her mother, Samantha's support for Erica was disconcerting, and her decision to support Erica after the events that transpired was particularly painful. After careful consideration, I made the difficult decision to remove Samantha from my will. This was a decision I did not take lightly, but I felt compelled to do so. I decided to remove Samantha from my will. I felt it was necessary to take control of my life and my legacy. We divided our assets equally, with Erica receiving half of our savings and some personal items. I retained the house, but it felt empty without the family I once thought was mine. I decided to sell it and move into a modern apartment in the city. The transition was challenging, but I found solace in my work and gradually began to date again. It was during a business conference that I met Lisa. She was a breath of fresh air, intelligent, kind, and genuinely interested in me. Lisa had a successful career as a marketing executive, and her life story was free of complications. She had been married once before, but her husband passed away in a tragic accident. Despite this loss, she maintained a positive outlook and a vibrant energy. We began a relationship, and for the first time in years, I felt revitalized. Lisa had a way of making me forget the past and focus on the present. Her presence in my life was instrumental in my healing process, helping me to process and move past the emotional impact of Erica's betrayal. Conversely, Erica's life took a turn for the worse after the divorce. She relocated to a smaller apartment, and her attempts to secure new employment were hindered by depression and guilt, which led her to excessive alcohol consumption, resulting in rapid health deterioration. The repercussions of her actions and the loss of her family were significant. Erica's attempts to rebuild the relationship with Samantha were not as successful as hoped. Samantha, while expressing support for her mother, found it challenging to fully grasp the magnitude of her actions. The tension between them escalated, and Erica felt increasingly isolated. She sought solace in alcohol, which only exacerbated her condition. Consequently, Erica's professional life faced challenges, and her once vibrant appearance began to fade as she grappled with personal issues. I have learned from mutual acquaintances that she had been hospitalized on multiple occasions for alcohol poisoning and severe depression. While I found this information difficult to hear, I decided it was best not to reach out. The woman I once loved had caused significant harm to my life, and I felt it was important to protect my newfound happiness. Despite her efforts, Samantha, her mother's situation remained unresolved. Lisa and I got married last year. Our wedding was small and intimate, attended by close friends and family. It was a day marked by love and optimism for the future. Lisa's presence has been invaluable in allowing me to pursue new opportunities and focus on the life I have with Lisa. I am appreciative of the strength and joy Lisa brings to my life. We have established a new life together, free from the shadows of the past. In retrospect, I recognize that the years of pain and betrayal were a necessary journey that ultimately led me to this new chapter. Forgiveness, I have come to understand, is not merely about the other person, it is about liberating oneself from the shackles of the past. While I may never fully forgive Erica or forget what she did, I am working on it. I have found a way to move forward and embrace the happiness I deserve. Erica's decline serves as a cautionary example, underscoring the repercussions of betrayal and the indispensability of honesty in relationships. Regarding Samantha, I aspire to re-establish our relationship in the future, but at present, I prioritize the life I have with Lisa. I am appreciative of the second chance at happiness that life has given me,